Hello. It's been a while since I don't know, I've been in this creative rut lately, I guess, um, which has been interesting. I feel like it's probably been driven by a few different things. I haven't been doing much besides work and reading. Um, and so when I try to sit down to write, I just feel like I'm forcing it. Um, I think reading as a writer is a very important thing to do, but I think sometimes if I read too much, it can kind of lead to, I don't know how to exactly say it, not necessarily like, I mean, there's some imposter syndrome involved in that, right? Because you're reading all these great things and you're like, there's no way I could ever write something as good as this. But that I found transitions, I guess subliminally, subconsciously, into I could never write anything like this. And then I inherently, maybe without even entirely meaning to, start to copy, or not copy, but try to start writing like whatever I'm reading. Not necessarily, and that could be stylistically, that could be content, that could be any number of things. And sometimes that can be good to practice, but I feel like when I start doing that, I inherently start comparing what I'm doing to what whoever I've read has done. And I feel like it never, because I'm a different writer, right? I feel like it doesn't feel good enough. And so that kind of leads back to this sort of, I get started on something and then I just cancel it. I stop doing it, I put it away. Sometimes I'll be in the middle of a sentence and I'll just basically close the laptop and go do something else because I feel like I'm not doing as good of a job at that thing as this other person did at that thing. And yeah, I think ideally I would not write anything like what I'm reading, but also I think when I'm reading something that's really good and I get really excited about it and that's what I'm thinking about, then it just pulls me to incorporate something like that. I think that's something that I need to try harder to get away from. It's not like something that I necessarily want to do or that I'm trying to do, but I think it is something that I'm doing. And it's sort of become this interesting problem in my creative life. Which I think that's one reason, like near the end of last year when I decided I was going to start watching more films. I think because films are far enough removed from writing that I can still pull the creativity from it without necessarily comparing. And I think that in my mind that's easier to keep those two things separate. So it's just something interesting I've noticed about myself, I guess, lately. But yeah, I'd like to get out more, experience more. I think that's something I've kind of gotten away from over the last couple of months, and that has also stifled my creativity, because I think if you're gonna write about life and people doing things, it helps a lot if you're living and doing things. Which is perhaps obvious, but it's something that you can get so caught up in. And for me, I get so obsessive over reading, and even though I don't track what I read anymore as far as like statistics go. I don't know how many books I've read this year. I don't know how many pages. I don't know stuff like that, like the statistics of it. I'm still drawn to read kind of as much as I can. Last night I sat out on this deck here. It was much cooler. It's like 95 now. It was probably low 80s, I think, around sunset last night when I was out here reading Jim Harrison. Read one of his essays from his search for the genuine. And I think there's something about Jim Harrison, or at least his writing, that pulls you down to earth. Like there's a certain truth to it, whether it's like factual or not. There's like a realness to the way he thinks and the way he writes. And I think that's something that I would like to be able to do in my own work, in my own way. And I don't necessarily find myself when I'm reading Jim Harrison trying to imitate him. I think we have different enough interests, and I think with nonfiction in general, I don't try to. It's not as bad as like when I'm writing a short story, for instance, or a novel, trying to write a novel. And maybe I'm trying too hard to write a short story, or maybe I'm trying too hard to write a novel, when at this point in my life, what I'm more interested in and perhaps better suited for, I think I'm trying to force the fiction or force the novel, because it's been a couple years since I've done one, that maybe the essays, I want to put together a collection of essays. That's Belle. I want to put together a collection of essays, but I don't want to force a collection of essays. So I'm not like in a hurry to do that. I think I get so caught up in wanting to publish something that I try to force things, and then when they don't work, instead of trying to figure it out, I'll jump on to the next thing that I think I might be more passionate about, that I can just knock out or whatever. And yeah, I think that's maybe what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm gonna put together a collection of essays. It may be next year, it may be the year after that. It's hard to know. I don't want to force it, but I think I've been writing a lot more personal essays, mainly book reviews, stuff like that, the last couple of years, and I think compiling those, not all of them, but like kind of selecting certain ones that make sense, the ones that I'm proud of, and putting them into a book could be something that I'd be really interested in, something I haven't done before. Just thinking out loud, stuff I've been thinking about internally on and off for a while, but I think thinking through it out loud and kind of putting those thoughts out is a whole different thing. So as far as getting out more, we have a canoe trip planned with a couple of my buddies, and those are always fun. We did one a couple years ago, done hiking trips, and so about 2 weeks from now, a little bit less, I'll be on the water, drinking some beer, hanging out, probably bring some poetry or some essays, something like that, short stories maybe, that I can read. I don't want to get caught in a novel as I'm doing that. Something I can bounce in and out of, take little bites out of a little easier. But I'm really looking forward to that, and kind of just escaping the phone probably won't have cell service out where we'll be, which is good, and just kind of getting away for a couple of days and kind of being in nature. I think I like the idea of being in nature, but oftentimes when like even coming out here, it's hot and I can just go back in, and there's so many times where I will come out here and it's too hot or whatever, and I'll just head back inside because it's right there. And being out, you know, miles from anything, you don't have that option, and you kind of get to settle in and just kind of be more in the moment, which is something that I think, even though I like to say I try to do, I probably don't do that often, just because there's so much distraction everywhere. And so something I'm looking forward to. This has just been me talking, but hopefully it was interesting in some way for you if you've watched this far. And yeah, I'd like to say I'll try to do videos more often, but I probably won't. I'd like to say more regularly. Again, probably won't. Yeah, but if you're here and you watched it, then thank you. That's cool. Finally got a breeze going. It's still hot as hell, but you know, it's Mississippi. Hopefully, we're supposed to get some cooler weather next week. A little bit cooler anyway. Yep. All right. Well, that's it for now. See you next time.